Alright everyone, this happens to be one of my fortes, so this video goes out to Right Wing Watch, link in the description to their video. I'm sure you'll find it hilarious, not in a great way, but it's funny. But read the description of this. I'll read their description for you, and then I'll point out exactly why they're wrong. Now, context, this is a video of VA Shiva, who's running for the Senate. I can't pronounce his last name reliably. Shiva Ayyadurai, I believe. So, don't jump down my throat. I'm not a native Hindi speaker. But Shiva, who is, fairly obviously not white, meeting with Millennial Matt, and I guess the idea is that Shiva is going to be the next Adolf Hitler or something. Like, he's in competition with Richard Spencer and Greg Johnson and some of these others to seize the modern-day neo-Nazi movement. How he's going to do this, I'm not sure, but he's going to lead the white ethno-state. And so he was meeting with Millennial Matt, who's an alt-right troll, which is funny. But let's read the description. It's like the funniest thing ever. Right Wing Watch reports on the extreme rhetoric and activities of key right-wing figures and organizations, like myself, by showing their views in their own words. In other words, by pirating their content. Somehow you get away with this despite the fact that you almost never actually edit it. Like, you do realize that the content owners of these standalones could flag your content down. They don't even care. They just persist. It's like nobody bothers because they get like 34,000 subs. And they keep targeting people with like 1 million or whatever. So it's the funniest shit I've seen. In this clip, VA Shiva meets with an alt-right troll and blesses a statue of Keck, a Pepe the Frog-inspired deity at the center of a satirical 4chan religious institution. Everything fucking about that entire statement is completely and utterly wrong. The problem is, of course, some normie that's, they actually unironically enjoy Right Wing Watch. For anything other than, hey, Pat Robertson had a stroke, he must have displeased Jesus. I would agree with Jared Holt, I'm sure, on that one by his own standards. Other than like the Pat Robertson and Glenn Beck being crazy stuff, a lot of their other material is totally wrong, but the people who take it seriously won't question it. The problem is this. Keck is not Pepe-inspired. Pepe has become, over time, Keck-inspired. You got it totally wrong. Keck is an actual Egyptian deity from pagan antiquity. We're talking several thousand years ago. We're not talking about yesterday. Pepe is, in the last few years, Sad Frog's evolution, and Groiper and all these, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and all of these other offshoots. It's memes. Now, it is mimetic. It is occult and propagandistic in nature. It is a takeoff. It adapts to Keck. But Keck comes first, quite clearly. The Egyptians weren't, the Egyptians had a frog god. Yeah, in the most literal sense, basically they did. But they didn't have Pepe. They didn't have the internet, unless those hieroglyphs that appear to depict DNA in a laptop computer are to be taken totally literally. I think one of the references to Keck actually looks like that, which is about the funniest thing. It's pretty great. And also, satirical 4chan religious institution, the Pepe Keck stuff has gone well beyond 4chan. What are you talking about, dude? It's spread to Reddit and Tumblr and everywhere else under the sun long, long ago. There are 1 million YouTube videos about Pepe, and that's just the Pepe side. There are people who have made like religiously inspired, authentic-sounding music to Keck. That's actually happened. I can remember during the Ebola outbreak. People were making music and references in a religious fashion to that as well. The first real 4chan-ish religious offshoot, the first spiritual dabbling that doesn't take place on X was essentially Ebola-chan. It comes before Pepe. Pepe's there, but it's not religiously inspired. People dig Keck up, and then it sort of gets wrapped together, and it's all very amusing. It's also very occult. I wrote a book called Occult Memetics. A fairly short tract on these subjects. It is very real occultism. You can say it's satirical and it's not meant to be taken seriously. I fucking beg to differ. There are people who do take it seriously. That's because of propaganda in one sense, but it is authentic occultism. It fits in right with chaos magic. It does. And Keck is an actual Egyptian deity. If you have any belief at all in the rudiments of pagan antiquity, then you have to believe that at the very least there's some remnant psychological or spiritual force associated with figures from the time. Well, then Keck is one of those. Maybe a lesser one, but it's the most obvious that wraps up with Pepe. But no, Pepe doesn't come before Keck. It's not just 4chan. It's not always satirical. And the basic indication, I'm sure that Right Wing Watch probably doesn't care about Millennial Matt per se. They're like, oh, well, he's one of a number. He's part of that legion of evil, like 4chan trolls. The evil far right that's, going to turn into the Fourth Reich or something. So that's pretty mundane. No, they're really targeting Shiva with this. They're trying to associate him with racism, which is, again... Take a look at, V.A. Shiva. Do you think he's a white ethno-nationalist? I'm going to say probably not. But, Right Wing Watch disagrees. But then again, they'll also declare, like Ben Shapiro is a Nazi. Milo, who is gay and a Zionist, self-proclaimed, he's a Nazi. He's the Nazi gatekeeper. Sargon is like a Nazi gatekeeper. Malnu, myself. When this is the sort of person that's being labeled a fascist by a group, you have to question whether that group knows what it's talking about. So it's very funny for someone else's footage here is uploaded, and this is basically, this is V.A. Shiva being, Keck worshipping racist. The Keckistan stuff goes so far past any political ideology. Essentially, in its primordial stage, what Keck and Pepe and all this stuff is about is a rejection of PC culture. It's a globalized sort of occult force, though, because, it's taking Egyptology from antiquity, of course, wrapping up with, modern chaos magic and memetics and things. It's very funny. It's a cosmopolitan sort of occult body. But it's a rejection, essentially, of political correctness, of censorship, of convention, a rejection of the establishment. That's the core fundamental premise of all that we are seeing right now. People have begun to reject the lamestream. Groups that are part of the lamestream, therefore, will fixate on whatever aspect they want within that core and try to mislabel it. And through their collective effort, the establishment cores seek to take the anti-PC, anti-establishment stuff and break it apart so that it can't work as well. That's what they're seeking to do. It's an attempt to destroy it through propaganda. For instance, you carve off one group of the anti-PC and you say, well, it's progressive. Well, no, it's anti-PC, but you're just trying to lump them in under that category to attack them from the right. Or you say it's alt-right. Well, no, that's just a component of it with people with certain other side ideologies, essentially. They call them their main ideologies at this point, but, in its pre-schismatic stage, that's basically what it was. It was essentially still that anti-establishment, anti-censorship core. They successfully carved them off of that main core to make the main core weaker. They're also making these side bodies more extreme, potentially, in the process. They're actually causing violence, which they know that they're doing. They like violence. They can report on it, and they can clickbait and get money. But Right Wing Watch is so totally and abjectly wrong. Everything about their statement regarding what's happening here is incorrect. Their entire premise is wrong. Pepe does not inspire Keck. It's the other way around. Pepe is its own thing, gets wrapped up with Keck that was already existent. It's not all satirical. It certainly is not just on 4chan. Yeah, it might be most prevalent on politically incorrect. That's where you get a lot of the Pepe stuff. Certainly. I don't debate that, but it's also heavy on Reddit and YouTube and Twitter and everywhere else. Look at the number of frog avatars on Twitter for a quick example of why your premise is totally wrong. And then, of course, to suggest that Shiva's, he's hanging out with racists, he must have, racist sympathies. Okay, the average person in a vacuum probably isn't going to take that seriously. They're probably going to reject your argument. And say, so one of these, he lines Shiva up with a bunch of clan members, and it'll be a game of one of these things is not like the other. Something stands out. There's a difference here. I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely there, and you can tell. I'm sure that people on the alt-right would have a very fun time likening that to Sargon's what constitutes white argument, actually. But yeah, Shiva seems like a cool dude, by the way. He's not all that out there. The fact that he's willing to bless Keck, so politicians ramble about the Bible or how great the Pope is all the time, or they say, well, we need more Islamic celebrations to be inclusive. What the fuck is the difference, dude? It's still a deity. How is that one any different than Allah or Jesus Christ? There is no difference. You make the choice yourself. It's the result of your upbringing or your conversion, usually. That's 99% of the time you're born into your religion. The rest, you're probably converted into it. Well, there's no difference. Strictly speaking, objectively speaking, you may have an anecdotal spiritual experience. Some people claim that about Keck. every time they get quads on a 4chan thread. What's the difference? There is none. That's about all. Peace out.